Okay, people. So, the Hearthstone Facebook page released all the cards, I think, that will be coming out in Blackrock Mountain. So, might as well take a look at all of them. I play Hearthstone quite a lot. I've been playing it recently. I got to Legend today. Go away. So, yay! But as you can see, by the day I chose a very poor time to do so. So, I'll try and get to Legend again, do some Hearthstone videos if I can, but this will be the first. I'll just be going through cards and saying what I think. Some of them I've already seen, and some of them I've only just seen. So, first one is Blackwing Technician. This got released ages ago, uh, and introduced, among other cards, the new holding mechanic, which is basically if you have the card in your hand, then stuff happens. So it's a 3 cast 2/4 battle cry if you're holding a dragon game, +1/+1. It's pretty good. Pretty good. 3/5 for a 3 drop is it's pretty darn good. Spider Tank is the kind of standard stat tier, I guess, for a 3 drop, and this goes above that. So rather than 3 drop for a 3/4, which is the president that Spider Tank set, is now a 3 drop for a 3/5 if you're holding a dragon. So it's good. It just indicates a little bit of power creep, but nothing too bad. 3/5 for a 3 drop is pretty good. Then there's Grim Patron. So it's a 5 cast 3/3. Both of them are generic, by the way. They're class neutral. Whenever this minion survives damage, summon another Grim Patron. So there's a lot of, there are a lot of combos involving this card, like Bouncing Blade and in general, just if you play in Mage or something, you can just 2 mana for a 3/3 every time. I don't know exactly whether or not this will get played. I'm kind of skeptical because I mean, a 3/3 for a 5 drop really isn't good. So you would only really want to drop it at a time in which you could play a card that would ensure that you resolve its effect, because otherwise it'll just get killed. Um, if they invest 5 mana into Grim Patron, the opponent's just gonna attack it. They aren't gonna let it live, so you can get more value out of it. And by that time, essentially, I guess say you play in Mage, you wait until turn 7 to play it, or whatever. You cast 5, then pop it with the Fire Blast, get another one. That's essentially 7 mana for a 6/5, which isn't great. It's all right. I mean, um, we'll wait to see how far it goes. There are loads of things that you can do with it. I just don't think it will be played a lot. I think it could be. I think it's an okay card. I don't think it's amazing, but it's not terrible either. Then Hungry Dragon. Hungry Dragon was I think the first dragon that got revealed, and it is very good. It's very good. Again, just indicative of the power creep uh, that Blackrock Mountain is introducing. So it's a 4 cast dragon 5/6 battle cry. Summon a random 1 cast minion for your opponent. So very good. 5/6 for a 4 drop um, is amazing. It's just way beyond the president's previously set. I mean, again, at one point the standard was Chillwind Yeti back in the day as a 4 drop for stats. So it's no longer 4/5 for 4 drop is fair. It's like, all right, the 5/6 for 4 drop is the new thing. and the battle cry summon a random one cost minion for your opponent. It doesn't really I mean it's okay, but it isn't a huge it isn't a huge thing. You're not giving your opponent like tons of value. I think it's fair in that in order for the card to exist, they needed to have some kind of thing to hold it back, but this is a very reasonable thing. It doesn't make the card bad at all, just fine. Give the opponent a one cost. In most instances, it won't be significant, only if you're playing against, um, I guess, an aggro build or something. Um, or they get particular one drop. I don't know. I don't know like every one drop, so there could be a one drop um, that I'm missing out. But generally, the one drops are either uh, 1-2 or 2-1 in terms of stats. So if it's a 2-1, and you assume that they'll ram the thing that gets summoned off it into it, then it's essentially a 5-4 for forecast, or a 5-5, which is better than the equivalent, which you generally find now, like I don't know, like the is it Tailwind Strider or something? The forecast 5-4 beast, and Chillwind Yeti. It's just better in terms of stats than those things. So yeah, Hungry Dragon is very good. It's just like the new baseline 4-drop, I guess. Then Dark Iron Skulker, deal 2 damage to all undamaged enemy minions. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's like an en masse backstab, except the bad thing is it costs 5, but the good things are that um, it deals it to everything, and you get a 4/3 body, which is also pretty good. So I mean, I think it probably will be played. Um, Maybe just as a one-off, but potentially as a two-off as well. I think if it comes into draft, this card is very very good in draft. Like it's actually incredible in draft if you're playing a rogue. So should be kept in mind. But yeah, I think it's pretty good. It isn't anything like super amazing, but it's pretty good for sure. 4/3 for 5 isn't that great, but obviously you get value out of its effect more so. Then Rend Blackhand. This is an interesting card. It's an 8/4 battle cry if you're holding a dragon, destroy a legendary minion. So it's weird in that it's like it's like a bigger big game hunter that is in itself vulnerable to big game hunter. So it's pretty unusual. I mean 4 defense is uh, well, there are two things that hold this card back from being something that most players would play. The first being that it has A attack, which means that it's weak to big game hunter, and the second being 4 defense, which means that mid game things can take it out. Um, and those things do hold it back. Um, I mean, it's funny because like you would slow roll this, so you would hold it, and then you have to be holding a dragon in order to use the effect. It's pretty interesting. Um, I don't think it's something that will be like an absolute stable or whatever, but I think that well, following this, you'll see the decks that seem to be most inclined to have dragon hybrids or dragon variants rather are priest and paladin, and I think certainly for priest, if you're playing dragon priest, I would imagine people would play just one copy of this because it immediately replaces itself. You get a lot of value off of it. So, say their turn 7 they play Doctor Boom, your turn 7 you just play this, blow it up, and then even if this ends up dying uh, from the explodey things, um, it, it it doesn't really matter. You already got your value out of it, and if it lives after it kills something, I mean they design it in a manner so that it probably won't live after it kills something, but because you immediately get quite a lot of mana value out of it, if it does live, being able to hit for 8 is pretty good. So it's interesting. It isn't broken or anything, but I think control builds will probably look towards it. Obviously, by that I mean uh, control builds that play dragons, like Dragon Priest, which we will see eventually. And then this is Axe Flinger. Whenever this minion takes damage, deal 2 damage to the enemy hero. So I mean, for cost 2/5 exclusive warrior card. It's okay. I don't think it's anything too amazing. Again, it'll be interesting in draft. It just complements like the whole uh blacksmith acolyte of pain kind of, when this takes damage do X kind of thing. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention for Grim Patron that it will be pretty interesting in draft because you would be able to obtain value out of it in draft. But aside from that, back to Axe Flinger. Um, the most common warrior build is control. I don't think this suits the control build too much, but it's an interesting card. I guess it's nice. It's nice for warriors to have, I guess. Then Lava Shock. Deal 2 damage, unlock your overloaded mana crystals. So this introduces the unlock mechanic, which unlocks all of your overloaded mana crystals. I think it's okay. Like deal 2 damage for 2 mana is not very good. In fact, it's pretty bad. But being able to unlock everything is okay. But for 2 mana, it isn't exactly amazing. It only becomes useful really towards mid game, I guess, and late game. But then you're using it primarily to unlock the deal 2 damage thing. Isn't all too relevant. So I mean, I don't think this card is amazing. I think it might very well be played. It probably will be played just because unlocking is good. Overload uh is quite restrictive sometimes. Towards the early stages of the game and mid game, having a reduced um mana pool in those stages of the game is pretty bad. So being able to unlock in itself is useful enough, but the card itself isn't that good. Deal 2 for 2 isn't that good. So yeah, it's an average card, I guess. Then there is Dragon Egg. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 2/1 whelp. Um, it's not that great. It would have been better if it were a dragon probably, but I mean it isn't anything too special. It's just another egg. I mean, there are things that you can do with it, but it's like, alright, play this turn 1, turn 2, hit it with the mage hero power, and then it's like, alright, okay. That wasn't amazing. It's strictly worse than the Nerubian Egg, to be perfectly honest. But it's another egg. I'm sure you can do things with it. It's interesting because it's a 1 cost, I guess, compared with Nerubian Egg, but it has similar applications to Nerubian Egg as well, which are relatively limited. I mean, I just don't think that this is amazing. Like summoning a 2/1 each time is damaged isn't great. Compared with Nerubian, which is already, fairly limited in the things that you can use it in. Which at least summons a 4/4. So it's like, well, you pay 2 and then summon a 4/4. Eventually, that's pretty good. While with this, it's like you pay 1 and summon a 2/1, which you would already do with a 1 cost. And then if you summon 2/1s, it's like, well, they're still 2/1s. It's not exactly great. So it isn't as profitable in regards to mana as Nerubian Egg. Nerubian Egg is like, alright, you pay 2 mana, it dies somehow. I mean, you're gonna do whatever. You're gonna like Argus it or something. And then you get a 4/4 which is, at the time closer to 4 mana than 3. I'd say it's like 3.5 in terms of value. So you profit even if you have to invest, like a power overwhelming or something in order to trigger Nerubian Egg or a Defender of Argus. You gain value out of the egg. You pay 2 to eventually get something that is closer to 4. While with this it's like you pay 1 and get at worst, well at worst nothing, but at worst, assuming they hit it with something that is 2, you get 2/1, which means that you just break even on your mana, and then even if you get 2, it's like, okay, well, you paid 1 mana to get 2 mana's worth of things, and if you presumably you have to do something in order to trigger that effect, you're still breaking even. So I mean, I don't think Dragon Egg is that good. That was a really long-winded explanation. Then Dragonkin Sorcerer. Whenever you target this minion with a spell, gain +1/+1. It's pretty good. It's pretty good actually. Yeah, it isn't bad at all. Again, for Dragon Priest, you like Power Shield it, or Valen's chosen it, just for super duper buffs. Yes, it's pretty good. Oh yeah, and I mean, yeah, Paladin as well. Nah, but Paladin don't really play that sort of stuff in Control. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It isn't like Hungry Dragon levels, but certainly a pretty good card. Will be interesting in draft as well. But yeah, mainly for Priest, I assume this will be played. Then Flamewalker. After you cast a spell, deal 2 random damage randomly split among all enemies. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, a lot of people are saying, yeah, it'll get played in Mech Mage. I don't think it will get played in Mech Mage, just because like you aren't gonna throw spare parts into it. And there are other things where you can throw spare parts into, but ultimately none of them are as good as Antonidas. So you tend to hold your spare parts just for Antonidas, because that's the way to obtain maximum value out of them. Unless you need to use them, or it's better to use them in a certain situation. But generally, you would hold your spare parts just to buff Antonidas up. So it isn't like you're going to throw a bunch of spare parts into Flame Waker and bop a bunch of things. I think this is better in Control Mage, or other variants besides Mech Mage or any aggressive mage build. Just because, personally, having played Control Mage, the deck lacks a good 3-drop other than Acolyte Pain, because the thing with Acolyte Pain is that it's entirely dependent on the matchup as to whether you'll play it on turn 3, because you want to obtain value out of it. You want to get at least 2 draws off of the Acolyte Pain. So against aggro, you'll play it turn 3, because it's good at hitting into things and drawing 1 defense minions and whatnot. But against a lot of mid-range and control variants, you're not just going to be dropping the Acolyte of Pain turn 3, you're going to be waiting until turn 5 or something to drop it and then bop it, or late game, whatever. So the deck lacks a solid 3-drop, and you don't want to be playing like secrets, because that's pretty bad. So this is pretty good and stuff like that. This is actually what that deck has been asking for. So I think this is more a card that will assist those kinds of variants, like the mid-range control mage builds, than it will mech mage. But overall, it is pretty good. It is pretty good. Oops. And then Imp Gang Boss. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 1/1 Imp. I think it's alright. I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's pretty okay. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. It's okay. Um, Probably use it in Zoo potentially, considering people play Harvest Golem as a 3-drop. This might be better than Harvest Golem in some cases. Um, but at the same time, it's kind of not as well. It's pretty good, but you know, there are a lot of like okay cards in this set, and there are a lot of like really strong cards in this set. So this is just an okay card. Then Core Rager, a Hunter exclusive. Yeah, Hunter exclusive. If your hand is empty, game +3/+3, 4 mana, 4/4 beast. Alright. I mean, I don't think it's as broken as anyone. Like loads of people are. Oh my god, this is so good. Face Hunter. Um, it's okay. It isn't like super duper good. It's okay. Um, cause generally, I mean the deck doesn't have depends on whether it's Face Hunter or Mid-Range Hunter. This isn't particularly good in Mid-Range Hunter, and in Face Hunter, I don't know too much about Face Hunter, but I'd imagine that 4 mana investment is quite a lot outside of mid to late game. The deck doesn't really have a late game, so I guess mid game dropping a 7/7 for 4 is pretty good, but um, your hand isn't going to be empty a lot of the time. You don't just throw everything onto the field. Um, Firstly, because you often won't have enough mana to. That's just how it is. You can't super duper overextend because otherwise you run out of. Sorry, you don't have enough mana to do that. Um, and also, it isn't favorable all the time to just drop everything onto the field. So this is more like, I guess it gives the deck an option for later on in the game. Um, I, I, it's okay. It's okay. It isn't amazing. It isn't as powerful as everyone's saying it is. Um, it's okay. It's pretty average. Just big game hunter away anyway. Then there's this thing, Blackwing Corruptor. 5 cost, 5/4. If you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage. Pretty good card. It is pretty good. Um, yeah. Don't know what else to say. It's pretty good. 5/4 for a 5 cost isn't amazing, but it's alright. And then deal 3 to whatever you want if you're holding a dragon is a very good. Well, it isn't very good. It's like a 7 out of 10 battle cry. So it's pretty darn sweet. Again in the dragon builds. Then Dragon's Breath, deal 4 damage, cost 1 less for each minion that died this turn. Isn't great. I mean, you can do, like Flame Strike, do this, ram a lot of things into a lot of things, but just compared with other cards, uh, Mage already has Frostbolt, which is 2 mana for 3 damage, and Freeze. which is like 3 and freeze is arguably better than 4. In fact, it almost definitely is better than just deal 4. Um, you have Fireball, which is 4 for 6. I guess Flame Strike, which is 7 for 4 to everything. And even looking at the stuff that isn't played as much, like Flame Cannon, is 2 for 4, even though it obviously isn't as good. So 5 for 4 is really not mana efficient at all. And then cost 1 less for each minion that died this turn. Aside from Flame Strike, I mean, there are rarely times where in Constructed and you're playing Mage, regardless of whether it's Mech Mage or Control Mage and stuff. I mean, with Mech Mage, you have an abundance of creatures on the board, but they're generally going to be hitting face quite a lot. You tend not to make monster trades too often. I mean, it's entirely dependent on the situation and the matchup, but it isn't a primary focus of the deck to the extent where you would play something like Dragon's Breath with the intention to just make a bunch of trades and then shoot things. And in Control Mage, yeah, you do often, like mid game to late game Mage variants, you will attack monsters with your monsters, but it's rarely, firstly, with the intention of your things dying. Generally, you try to profit value, so obtain like 2 cards for each card. It isn't just like ram a bunch of things into a bunch of things for even trades and whatnot. And also, you don't play a whole bunch of monsters, so at best for this cards are gonna be like, you ram something into their something, and then it's deal 4 damage for 3, which is still okay. So I don't know. This card isn't amazing. I think it's interesting in draft. It's pretty interesting in draft because regardless of what variant you play in draft, a lot of the time you will be involved in monster trades, and then the value of this card will be a lot clearer. Just 4 damage in general is a lot better in draft. So I think this will be pretty useful in draft. Whether it's useful in constructed, I doubt, but we'll see. I think it's okay. Then there is Nefarian, an 8/8 dragon with the battle cry. Add 2 random spell cards to your hand from your opponent's class. So this is a pretty cool card, actually. One sec. Yeah, it's a pretty cool card. It isn't like, I don't know, super broken, but it is pretty good. So add 2 spells from your opponent's class. I mean, that's pretty much always going to have the potential to be very good, because each class has its own exclusive sets of spells, which are in themselves useful. But they also have a lot of bad ones, so the randomness isn't great, but you can't really control it. It's just, it's pretty good having a dragon that immediately replaces itself in that way. Because the legendaries that tend to be played are the ones that give immediate value. So things like Dr. Boom and Ragnaros, and Black Knight, I guess, or things that that have Death Rattle floating abilities, like Sylvanas or Sneed's Shredder, stuff like that. And this fits into that category, which is pretty good. So even though it is an 8/8, which means that it is vulnerable to Big Game Hunter, and it's a legendary, so it's vulnerable to to rend Black Hand as well. Um, the fact that you immediately gain value out of it, it's immediately a +2, um, means that it is on the better side of things. Um, Regardless of what you get, even if what you get is pretty bad, it's like, well, it floated, you got value out of it. And if you get some really good stuff out of it, then you get some really good stuff out of it. Randomness is not a deterrent. It isn't necessarily a good thing, but it isn't a deterrent in a lot of cases either. Um, Randomness can often prove to be a very good thing in many cases, and is a fundamental part of the game. So yeah, this card is good. I like it. Um, I don't know whether it will be played a lot, but I just like it. I think again, Dragon Priest, yeah, it's cropping up. Then Draconid Crusher. If your opponent has 15 or less health, gain +3/+3. It's okay. It's okay. It's pretty average, I guess. Um, See, this is actually something that I prefer more than Core Rager in terms of providing aggressive decks with late game value. Because you can spend your early game rushing your opponent and then dropping a 9/9 for 6 is pretty good. I mean, arguably it isn't as good as dropping a 7/7 for 4, but I think having your opponent on 15 or less health for aggro decks is a much easier thing to do than emptying your hand. As weird as that sounds, and even though Core Rager costs less, um, and it's a beast, just you don't empty your hand until the later stages of the game when you've really used everything out, and in those cases, if you've lost, you've lost. Like, sorry, if you haven't killed them, then by that stage, then you've probably lost. While with this, um, I mean, the fact that it is a 6 cost means that you can't just drop it too early, but this is still towards the later stages of mid game. I mean, dropping a 9/9 on turn 6 is pretty good for those kinds of decks. So, I mean, I think it's okay. I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's alright. I think it's interesting. I think in draft as well, this card will be stupidly good in draft. This is very, very good in draft. 100%. So yeah, that's that. There are a lot of things that are good in draft in here. Then Volcanic Drake costs 1 less for each minion that died this turn. I like this. I like this card a lot. Again, I think that this is better suited to aggro decks than something like Core Rager. I think this suits Zoo or mid-game Hunter potentially quite a lot. So it's a 6 6/4 dragon. I mean, it's that in itself is okay. It isn't too bad, but the fact that it costs 1 less for each minion that died this turn, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Because in aggro decks, you aren't always able to just hit face, or early game decks, I should say, you aren't always able to just hit face. There are times where you make a lot of monster for monster trades, and in doing so, being able to follow up such things by dropping a 6/4, it's pretty realistic that in Zoo or either of the common hunter variants or stuff like that, um, that you can ram things into other things, even if it's just you know uh, two trades of monsters, then this becomes a 2-drop, which is really, really good and stuff like that. Because then um, you are replacing what you had before for 2 mana investment, which is likely to be, you know, 2/3s or 3/2s or like Haunted Creeper or things like that, just floater kind of things. Like either weaker Death Rattle monsters or um, averagely statted things, which is unlikely in constructed but common in draft. Replacing them for a 6/4 at that early stage in the game is pretty darn good. So I like this card. I like it a lot. I think it certainly has potential to be played in those kinds of decks. So remains to be seen, but I like it. Then we get to Chromagus, an 8-cost 6/8 legendary dragon. Whenever you draw a card, put another copy into your hand. This card is really, really good. Don't know what else to say. It is really, really good. Arguably would have been balanced in some way if it were 7/8 because you could big game hunter it. But you can't, and 8 defense is really good, so it's likely that it will live until you draw a card, and then you draw a card, and it's just super duper good. Things like this actually appropriate Rend Black Hand, or the argument for running Rend Black Hand, because this is the perfect target for Rend Black Hand. Even if Rend Black Hand were to later die to a big game hunter, doesn't really matter. You kill it. But that's sorry, you prevent them from getting copious amounts of value out of this. But that's a separate discussion. Yeah, this card is really, really good. Yeah, I expect it will be played in a lot of things. Then Demon Wrath, deal 2 damage to all non-demon minions. This card is very good. It's very good. It's essentially a 3-cast Consecration. Because the opponent is unlikely to be playing demons unless it's a mirror match. I mean, it's nice in that, I mean, like, well designed in that if you're playing Zoo or something, you don't have like an abundance of demons, so you can't use this that much. But I mean, it's pretty good. It like, I mean, I I don't know whether it will be played over Hellfire particularly, but I don't know. I don't play Warlock that much, and I haven't seen it much in Constructed lately. But I think the card is pretty good, for sure. For sure. Then Dragon Consort. Alright, this is a Paladin exclusive Dragon. 5 cost 5/5, Battlecry. The next dragon you play costs 2 less. Really, really good. And this is why people talking about Dragon Priest, and they're also talking about Dragon Paladin. This is why people are talking about Dragon Paladin, because this is a really good Dragon exclusive. So yeah, so 5/5 for 5 is pretty good. Those stats aren't bad at all, and its effect is super good because it means that you can drop things like the previously mentioned Chromagus and just all the other dragons that exist. You can drop them earlier than you should be able to. So it's an accelerant. It's a mana accelerant card that is already good statistically in itself. So yeah, super duper good card. Then Druid of the Flame. A 3 cost 2/2, choose one, transform into a 5/2 or a 2/5. This isn't very good. Just simply put, it isn't very good. A 3 cost 2/5 once upon a time would have been pretty good. This still is okay, but you know, it's not as good as Spider Tank or Blackwing Corruptor even, so it's not that bad. And sorry, it's not that good. And being a 5/2 for 3 is okay, but it's too easy to kill, so I doubt people will be doing that. So this card isn't great at all. It's pretty bad. Then Emperor Thaurissan. Wow, I messed that up. A legendary 6 cost 5/5. At the end of your turn, reduce the cost of cards in your hand by 1. This card is stupidly good. Arguably the best card in the set, because it means that you can do everything a turn earlier. The thing with most of the dragons that have been revealed is that they're all high mana costs. So things like this are very, very, very good in appropriating them to be played earlier. But this is so good. Like, this appropriates everything. You know, like, you can turn 5 coin into this, turn 6 play Antonidas, play 0 cost spare parts. Like, random interactions. Like, you could go on for days listing all the interactions with this. Reducing the cost of cards in your hand by 1 is so good. I mean, 5/5 for a 6 cost isn't incredible, but what I was saying before with the legendaries that tend to get played, immediately granting you value kind of thing, this immediately grants you value, and this is so dumb. Like, it's a very, very, very good card. Just completely absolves mana curves. It's very, 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 very good. Arguably the best card in the set. So, yeah, Emperor Thaurissan, I don't know. Keep an eye out for it. Then Fire God Destroyer, Shaman exclusive, 4 cost 3/6. Battle Cry, gain 1/4 attack, overload 1. It's a very good card. Very good card. Because regardless of how much attack it gains, it's going to be better than average. Because 3/6 in itself is pretty good stats for a 4-drop. So then anything beyond that is an improvement. Whether or not you get to do a 4-drop 7/6, it's irrelevant. Just anything, even a 4/6, a 4/6 4-drop is still pretty good. And anything beyond that is like, okay, a 5/6 is a Hungry Dragon. 6/6 is good. It's a very good card. It's something that Shamans needed as well. So pretty good. Then Gang Up, Rogue Spell, choose a minion, shuffle 3 copies of it into your deck. I mean, it's an interesting card, I guess. I don't really know if it will be played, but it's interesting. Interesting card design. Yeah, I don't think it will be played, but it's a cool card. I appreciate its uniqueness. So yeah. Then Majordomo Executus, 9 cast 9/7 Death Rattle. Replace your hero with Ragnaros the Firelord. Ragnaros the Firelord, as most of you will know, is an 8 cast 8/8 Um, with this card cannot attack at the end of your turn, deal 8 damage to a random enemy. So making that your hero, as you might be able to see there, the hero power is to cast deal 8 damage to a random enemy, which is pretty good, I guess. Um, I don't think this card is that great, just because um, Ragnaros has 8 health, so the reason why there's one other card like this, which is Jaxorus. The reason why Jaxorus is so good, or is playable rather, is firstly because it has 15 defense, which equates to 15 health, which is basically like you can use it to manage your health. If you're about to die, you essentially Alexstrasza yourself, which is good. You essentially recover half of your health, and only having 8 health is much worse. Um, it means that you're probably going to die, or you could very easily die. Um, and also because you just play it. While with this, it's a death route. So with Jaxorus, you invest 9, and then you have your hero, and you have your 15 health. While with this, it's like you pay 9 to the 9/7, and then when it dies, you get Ragnaros. So you can't use it to micromanage your health like you can with Jaxorus. And because it's a death route, there are times where it won't necessarily be favorable to, you know, have Ragnaros as your hero, considering that it only has 8 health. So, this isn't that great, but it's interesting. It's interesting to think that, that they're allowing heroes to be, sorry, for legendaries to be used as heroes. It'll be interesting to see how that manifests itself later on. Um, but yeah, I don't think this will be too playable, but it's pretty interesting card design. Then quick shot, to cast Hunter spell, deal 3 damage if your hand is empty, draw a card. I actually like this card a lot more than Rage Core or whatever, Rage Core, whatever the beast from before was called. Because deal 3 damage is widely speaking pretty useful anyway. Um, because like this plus the hero power is 5 damage for 4 mana, which is pretty good in every sense. Considering that Hunter does just try and kill the opponent quickly, regardless of whether you're playing aggro or mid range. It's a pressure deck, so having things like this is good. And you can use it as removal, which is useful. And it means that you don't have to waste your kill commands as removal, because you can use this. But this is very useful in that you get to draw a card if your hand is empty. So generally, again with Hunter, if you do have a late game, which is unlikely, you're just desperately trying to find a way to kill them, and this really helps with that kind of like last resort, top deck into an out kind of thing. It's like you both get to inflict a bit of damage, which can often contribute to a win, because each increment of damage is important to achieving a win with any Hunter variant. But also it gives you another card if you do have no cards in hand that can also help to contribute to a win. So I like this card a lot, to be honest. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a pretty solid one-off, at least. Yeah, but time will tell. But I do like Quick Shot. I prefer it to Core Rager. I think that was what it was called. I don't know what I was calling it earlier. I was messing up. Ooh. Then there is Resurrect, which is a priest 2-cost spell. Summon a random friendly minion that died this game. This card is very good. Just the reason why, on a base level, it's very good because Priest, every monster that Priest tends to play is above 2 mana. I mean, the exception is Northshire Cleric, but generally most of the monsters that they play are above 2 mana. So if you use this, it's likely that you're going to bring back something which costs more than 2 mana. So in that sense, Resurrect is very mana efficient. I don't think it's broken just because it is random, and it isn't, even though it is mana efficient, it isn't always favorable to uh, get certain things even if they are above 2 mana. The randomness really reduces the extent that it can be viewed as broken, and that plenty of there are other things that can happen which, like, you can steal something and then ram it into something, or have, I don't know, like if you play Piloted Shredder getting a certain thing, or if they play Hungry Dragon and you get a random one cost, then that will, that can come up with this. The fact that it's random reduces the extent that it can be viewed as broken, but it is pretty darn good for sure. It's a very good card. It's one of the better cards of the set for sure. And just on a base design level, it's often going to be mana efficient, just because Priest tend to play a lot of things, a lot of monsters above 2 cost. Then this is Revenge. Deal 1 damage to all minions. If you have 12 or less health, deal 3 damage instead. I mean, this is alright. It isn't amazing. It's just a buffed up Whirlwind, except it costs more and is arguably not even that much better. It's okay, I guess. Yeah, it isn't amazing. Then Solemn Vigil, Paladin exclusive card, 5 cost, draw 2 cards, cost 1 less for each minion that died this turn. This card is okay. It's nothing too broken, but it's alright. Just a pot of greed. Should you elect to use it, and there are obviously things that you can do to reduce its cost, but it's alright. It's just their arcane intellect. They get their own arcane intellect now. So I mean, yeah, it's alright. It isn't draw 2 isn't amazing in this game. It's okay, but it isn't incredible. And you already have the one Lay on Hands that that control Paladin variants will play. I think this is much better for the aggro Paladin that like uses Hobgoblin and all that sort of stuff. This is much better than that because drawing 2 is useful in the aggressive variants, and if you are forced to make monster trades, just draw 2, and that's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, it isn't amazing, it's just pretty cool. And this card is great. This card is actually great. Twilight Whelp, Priest exclusive, 1 cost, 2/1. If you're holding a dragon, gain +2 health. So again, this is why people talk about Dragon Priest being a thing. This is super good. This is actually a very, very good 1-drop. If you're holding a dragon, which you're likely to be, it becomes Zombie Chow without the giving them 5 health. So it's pretty darn good. I like it a lot. And for sure, gonna have to build Dragon Priest at some point soon. Then there's this Volcanic Lumberer, Druid exclusive. 9 cost, 7, 8 with taunt. Costs 1 less for each minion that died this turn. This card isn't very good at all, really. Druid don't tend to make a lot of huge monster trades. So outside of, say you're playing an aggro deck and you resolve like a huge swipe or something, and you, I don't know, like manage to Invinate and play this for cheap, it just isn't that good. The deck already has much better taunters than this. Um, Ancient of War, I think, the one that becomes 5/10. That's much better than this is. Um, and even like you already have Druid of the Claw as well. I know that a 4/6 isn't as good as a 7/8, but it's much more logistically feasible in terms of playing it than this is. This isn't a bad card as such, but I just don't think it will be played. The deck has enough taunters already, and the means with which you would summon this aren't that easy to do in Druid. It doesn't happen in Druid a lot that you make, you know, lots of monster for monster trades or huge AoEs or stuff like that. It's entirely matchup dependent. So I don't think this card will get played, really. And that's it. So, when Blackrock Mountain comes out, or the first one comes out, or whatever, I will be playing through it. I'll do a video of me playing through it. And I'll do more Hearthstone stuff in the future. But, yeah. That's all from me. Like, comment, sub, whatever. And I'll see you around.